Hi, it's Dr. JP, and it's time for Little Red Riding Hood. So I've gotten a lot of requests for this one, Little Red Riding Hood. So why don't you come on over, take a seat here. This is retold and illustrated by Trina, Schart, Hyman. Little Red Riding Hood. Ooh. And there's Little Red. Looks like she's reading the book of Little Red Riding Hood. This is an original story by the Brothers Grimm. And we start out. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Elizabeth who lived with her mother in a house on the edge of the village. And she was loved by all who knew her. But she was especially dear to her grandmother, who loved her more than anything in the world. And one day, her grandmother sewed her a red velvet cloak with a hood and gave it to Elizabeth for her birthday. And it was so pretty, she liked it so much that she would never wear anything else, and therefore, that's when everybody called her Little Red. Well, early one morning, her mom said to her, "Come here, Little Red Riding Hood, and listen to me." "What, Mom?" "I want you to take this loaf of bread, okay, and some of this sweet butter, and this bottle of wine to your grandmother. Because she's sick in bed, and it'll do her a world of good. Now you got to go right away before the sun gets too hot, and promise me you're not going to daydream and stray off the path. And don't run or you'll fall and break the bottle, and then there'll be no wine for Grandma. And when you get there, please don't forget your manners. Say good morning, please, and thank you nicely without staring. And don't sit there sucking your finger. Don't stay too long, or else your grandma will get tired. And when you have a nice visit, come straight home." "Yes, Mama," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I promise I'll do just what you say." "All right, then here is the stuff. Are you ready?" "Yes." "Then let's get you going." So, Little Red, she left the home. And now her grandmother lived in a cottage in the middle of the forest. And it was a good hour's walk from the village. But Little Red knew the way. She had told her, "Well, I'm not really afraid to go by myself." And when she had walked far enough into the woods, who should she meet but a nice, sly, hungry old wolf. She had no idea what a wicked animal he was. However, so she was not frightened of him. "Good morning, Red Riding Hood," he said. "Good morning, Wolf," she answered politely. "Where are you off to so early in the day, my dear?" he asked. "Well, you want to know, I'm going to my grandma's, and she's sick in bed." "Oh, is that so?" he muttered. "What do you got in that basket?" "I got a loaf of bread, and I got some sweet butter and a bottle of wine, and Mama and I baked yesterday, so I'm taking this loaf of bread to my grandma, and it's going to do her good." "Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? And where does your grandma live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "Well, it's a good 15 minutes further down the wood. Her house is the one by those huge 3 big oak trees, right next to the blackberry hedge. There's a stream running by her garden. You know the place, don't you?" Oh yeah, I know that place. Yes. And the wolf thought to himself, this little girl is going to be a nice, plump morsel to eat. She'll be a good dessert after I eat her grandma. But I gotta be smart about this so I can make a good meal out of both of them. So I've gotta trick him. So he walked along with Little Red Riding Hood for a while. He was making polite conversation. Oh, look at those beautiful wildflowers. See them? Oh, they're so nice. Oh, Red Riding Hood, they're a sight for my tired eyes. Oh, you see how lovely. Oh, do you hear the birds singing out here? It's so wonderful. Enjoying the sunshine here. You are just so nice and well behaved. Everything is so happy out here in the forest. Isn't it, Little Red? And then Little Red Riding Hood, while she looked away from the path, she saw a black cat looking at her. And she saw the sunlight dancing through the trees. And you know, she saw the wildflowers and butterflies scattered through the fog, through the ferns, and she thought, I wonder if Grandma would feel happier if I took her a bunch of flowers. Yeah, I still have plenty of time to pick these flowers. So she put down the food and went to go pick some flowers. And each time she picked one, she saw another one, and a prettier one farther away. So she left the path and went deeper and deeper and deeper into the forest. And meanwhile, that wicked wolf, he went straight to Grandma's cottage and he knocked at the door. And Grandma was inside by her bed. Who's there? Oh, Grandma. It's me, Little Red Riding Hood, said the wolf. I bought you a loaf of bread and some sweet butter and a bottle of wine. Let me in, please. You'll have to lift the latch and let yourself in, dear, Grandmother said. I'm feeling too weak to get out of bed. So the wolf lifted the hatch and he opened the door and he ran straight to the bed. And without saying a good morning, he just grabbed the grandma and ate the whole grandma up. In one bite, he ate her. And then he put on a clean nightgown and shawl that were lying on a chair by the bedside. And he got into bed and he pulled the bed curtains closer together. Now, meanwhile, out in the forest, Little Red had wandered here and there picking flowers until she had so many she could barely hold them all. And the promise she remembered her grandma and the promise she made to her mom. So she found her way back to the path and walked straight to the cottage. And when she got there, she was amazed. The door was open, and she tiptoed in, and she felt very frightened. She didn't know quite why. What's wrong, she thought. I always like coming to Grandma so much, but why do I feel afraid? Why? Can it be because Grandma's sick? And she carefully opened the door and walked in. Ooh. Good morning, Grandma, she said, but there was no answer. Then she went quietly into the bedroom. And there was her grandma. And her face had drawn the shawl close over her face. And she looked very weird. And Little Red Riding Hood couldn't help but stare at her. Grandma, what happened? What big hairy ears you've grown. Well, it's better to hear you with, dear. It's better to hear you with. Grandma, your ears are so shiny. It's better to see you with, dear. Grandma, your hands are so strange. It's better to catch you and hug you with deer. Grandma, why you have those sharp teeth? Not to eat you with. And the wolf jumped up and he grabbed poor little Red Riding Hood. And then he had just finished his first good meal. And he grabbed her and ate her in one bite. And then he pulled the covers up over his head. And soon he was snoring loudly in the bed. Now, after a long while, not too long though, a huntsman from the village was just happened to be passing by Grandma's cottage. That old lady is kind of snoring loudly. Maybe I should stop in and see if there's anything the matter with her, said the hunter. So, he went right up to the house. And he saw the wolf was fast asleep in the grandma's nightgown and shawl with a fat stomach that was almost to burst. Guess what? That hunter, right away, the hunter knew what had happened. So here you are, you old sinner, the huntsman said. I've been looking for you for a long time, and now this is where I found you. And he raised his gun to shoot. But then he wondered if the wicked old wolf might have swallowed the grandma whole. And perhaps there's a chance she might still be alive. So he took out his knife instead. And he quickly killed the wolf while the wolf was sleeping. And then he cut open the wolf's stomach. And guess what? After the first cut, he saw a red velvet cloak. And after a few more cuts, a little girl jumped out and cried, "Oh, thank you, I was so frightened. I was so frightened." And next, the grandma climbed out, alive, but barely able to breathe from the fright and exhaustion. And she thanked the huntsman with her, "Thank you." And they both thanked him. They were so glad to see him, and he was so glad they were both alive that they hugged. And he shook grandmother's hand over and over again. And that's when they were all quite happy. And the huntsman, he skinned the wolf, and he took the pelt home to nail on his door. And Little Red Riding Hood, well, her and her grandma sat down and they ate the fresh bread and the sweet butter, and Grandma drank some of the wine, and Little Red had a cup of blackberry tea. And after a while, Grandma felt strong and healthy again, and they began to clean up all the mess the wolf had made and left in the cottage. And they washed some clothes and hung them up to dry. And as Little Red Riding Hood, she walked home through the woods, she thought to herself, "I'm never gonna wander off the forest path again. As long as I live, I should have kept my promise to my mom." She was comforted, though, because at least she minded her manners and always said good morning, please, and thank you.